Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're literally tearing down the walls of the modern economic system. We're going to take a really close look at how this beautifully designed architecture actually manages to keep the educated, hardworking middle class trapped in this continuous, exhausting loop of financial survival. So if you've ever felt like you're doing absolutely everything right, but you still just aren't getting ahead, we are in exactly the right place. Picture this. You work incredibly hard for 40 years. You do every single thing society demands of you. But despite decades of relentless effort, you wake up in your 50s or 60s and face a really painful reality. You are just one missed paycheck away from total financial ruin. You didn't blow your money, you didn't gamble, and you definitely weren't lazy. So how does this happen? The honest truth is, you aren't failing because of a lack of effort. You're failing because you're playing a game where the structural rules are totally rigged against you from day one. So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to dismantle these barriers chronologically. First, the invisible economic cage. Second, education and tax traps. Third, housing and salary illusions. Fourth, financing your ego. And finally, number 5, escaping the middle class. Okay, let's dive right into this. Part 1, the invisible economic cage, the 40-year trap. Now, this invisible cage, it doesn't have iron bars. Its bars are actually made of credit cards, tax structures, inflation, and really heavy societal expectations. Society hands us this very specific, trusted checklist for life. We all know the steps, right? Step 1, get a good degree. Step 2, secure a stable job. Step 3, buy a house on a mortgage. Step 4, pay your bills on time. We're promised that if we follow these steps to the letter, security and wealth will just automatically follow. But here's the catch. Following this perfectly often leads directly to step 5, nearing financial ruin in your 50s. And we're not talking about skipping your daily coffee here. We are talking about massive structural forces that actively hold your net worth down. Let's move on to part 2, education and tax traps, starting from behind. This is where we see how the middle class begins their professional journey already sitting at a massive financial deficit. The very first trap is what we can call the deferred life plan. See, ambitious individuals often confuse high credentials with high wealth. We end up spending the first 10 to 15 years of our prime earning life just paying back historic student debt. It's essentially the cost of admission to the middle class. But while you're paying off those credentials, you're missing out on your absolute most critical asset, which is time. A fancy degree might give you a high starting salary, sure, but it leaves you totally dependent on a corporate master. If you want to build real wealth, you have to shift your focus from buying credentials to buying assets, things that produce cash without you physically having to be there. And this brilliantly illustrates the second trap, the tax inversion. A lot of people think that the richer you are, the more taxes you pay. That is a complete illusion. The global tax system is deeply, deeply divided. When you're an employee, you get taxed on your time. Your hard-earned income is heavily deducted through payroll and income taxes before it ever even touches your bank account. But the wealthy, they earn income through capital, like corporate dividends, real estate, equity growth, and that is taxed at a significantly lower rate. Businesses get to spend money on their expenses first, and then they only pay taxes on what's left over. The middle class operates on the entirely wrong side of this architecture. If you're a W-2 employee, the reality of this tax structure is honestly pretty harsh. Just think about your calendar. You are working from January through the spring, all the way to April or maybe even May, literally just to fund the government. You spend a third of your year working at the highest possible tax bracket before you earn a single, untouched dollar for your own family. It's wild, right? If you want permanent wealth, you absolutely must shift your focus from increasing your highly taxed salary to increasing your equity ownership. All right, let's jump to section 3, housing and salary illusions, the mid-career trap. These are the mid-career traps that quietly lock you into the system. From a young age, we're conditioned to believe that our primary residence is our absolute greatest financial investment. But let's analyze the cold, hard numbers of trap number 3, the assumed asset. Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is the massive gap between assumption and reality. You assume it's a cash-producing asset, but the reality? The cash flow income is exactly 0. And meanwhile, over a 30-year mortgage, bank interest is actively draining your cash. Property taxes, draining cash. Maintenance and insurance, draining cash. In a lot of cases, these expenses end up doubling or even tripling the original purchase price of the property. So it all really comes down to this number right here, 0, zilch. Your primary residential asset produces exactly 0 cash flow every single month. It is a highly illiquid asset that acts like a giant financial anchor. Because think about it, if all your savings are tied up in the equity of your home, you have absolutely no liquid capital to jump on market crashes, invest in high-growth businesses, or fund asymmetric opportunities. I want you to hear this incredible quote from Nassim Taleb. He says, "The three most harmful addictions are heroin, carbohydrates, and a monthly salary." Let that sink in for a second. A monthly salary as a harmful addiction. This brings us straight to trap number 4, the comfort zone of stability. Look, a steady paycheck is a phenomenal tool for short-term survival, for sure, but it is the ultimate enemy of exponential wealth. When you get that exact specific amount of money deposited every single month, your brain adapts to this false sense of security. You start to perfectly match your rent, your car payments, your entire lifestyle to that predictable cash flow. And slowly, the salary seduces you into avoiding necessary professional risks. You don't start that side hustle or pitch that disruptive idea because you're terrified of losing the safety net. At the end of the day, the salary is literally the price a corporation pays you to forget your own dreams and optimize someone else's balance sheet. Next up, Section 4, Financing Your Ego, the Late-Stage Pitfall. This is the 5th and final trap, and it's the one that permanently seals that invisible cage around the middle class. Back in the day, debt was something people actively avoided. It was a total last resort. But today, modern consumer financial tech has turned debt into a culturally celebrated lifestyle choice. Just look at these rapid-fire traps. Buy now, pay later schemes, right on your phone, premium auto leases, 24-month finance luxury European vacations just to get the perfect Instagram photos, and high-interest premium credit cards. These tools seamlessly allow you to borrow from your vulnerable future self to live a life you haven't actually earned yet. And because you can finance a luxury vehicle for a manageable monthly payment, you completely fool yourself into believing you can actually afford it. When you finance consumer luxury, you are committing an act of total financial self-sabotage. You're buying temporary validation. The contrast here is incredibly stark. The middle class uses debt to buy depreciating status symbols that literally keep them chained to their office chairs. But the wealthy? They use debt strategically, as a high-leverage tool to acquire large, cash-flowing business assets. If your net worth is staying totally flat, but your closets and driveway are full of financed luxury, you're living a corporate illusion, not the American dream. Let's move to the good stuff and see how this builds into Section 5, Escaping the Middle Class, the Blueprint for Autonomy. Now that we've identified all these structural traps, we need the actual blueprint for absolute autonomy. It requires a complete rewiring of how you view money. Escaping this cage means you have to stop measuring your financial health by your income or the brand of your clothing. You have to start measuring it by this equation. True wealth equals the delta, or the difference, between your income and your ego. The wider you can stretch that gap, the faster you achieve absolute autonomy. So here is your exact blueprint to finally graduate from the invisible cage. Step 1, get off the consumer treadmill entirely and minimize those high-interest liabilities today. Step 2, shift your mindset from an employee who gets taxed first to an investor who utilizes tax structures. Step 3, always treat your time as a non-renewable asset. And finally, and this is a real game changer, you don't have to quit your job tomorrow. Instead, treat your day job as a venture capital firm that is quietly funding your own intellectual property. Use your stable salary to buy back your time after hours and build scalable digital assets. The economic rules of our society are meticulously designed to keep you processing data and paying off interest forever. But now you actually know the unwritten codes of this architecture. So I'm going to leave you with this question to really think about. Which of these economic traps has been quietly draining your financial power the most? Is it the illusion of housing, the comfort of the stable salary, or the heavy weight of luxury debt? It's time to master the system, protect your capital, and start building your escape today.